Hello, I'm Amitha Balachandra. This is a 6:30 p.m. show that I do every single day on this channel. Today we're going to pick up the protests that have happened and have been happening since June in Goa. And the reason I'm picking up this story again today is because it's important to build pressure. It's important to highlight the issues and the concerns people in Goa have. And now you must have seen the pictures and videos of midnight protests that took place 2 days ago in Goa, where citizens have been protesting against the three infrastructure projects. We're going to be talking about those three infrastructure projects and what concerns citizens in Goa has. For people who are watching right now, please ask your questions in the chat window. The chat window is open. We'll take as many questions as possible. And the thing about today's conversation is to understand what concerns Goa citizens have and why they are protesting against these three infrastructure projects. Now, let me tell you about the three infrastructure projects before I introduce my guests to you. First is the railway line, which will come at the cost of diversion of 113.85 hectares of forest land. Second, a four-laning is proposed of the existing two-lane project between Panaji in Goa and Belagavi in Karnataka, which will lead to a diversion of another 31.015 hectares of forest land. And the third project that's proposed is a 400 kV power transmission line, which passes through protected forest area. Now, the conservative estimate is about 50,000 trees will be felled for these three infrastructure projects. Let me also take you through the significance of this. And we'll put up a map for you to show you the significance of this because the three projects pass through the Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary, which also has the Mole National Park, and that is why Save Mole is has now gained significance in Goa. And this is Goa's largest and the oldest protected area. Look at those three projects, all cutting through protected forest area and going through water bodies. We'll show you that map as well in just a bit. But it's important to talk about the impact this will have on the people of Goa, the impact this will have on the environment in Goa, and what needs to be done, and why the government is not listening to people's demands because people have been protesting since June. There isn't enough attention being given to this. And the fact that people have concerns that this will completely destroy Goa. So we'll talk about all of this with two gentlemen. I'm very glad to have them on the show today. Dean De Cruz is an architect and a planner in Goa. He'll be talking about large scale changes that have happened, that will happen in Goa if these three projects go through. He'll also talk to me about the letter that's been written to the government, what kind of response they got or not. And I also have Sherwin Correia, who's a 20-year-old anti-coal activist who's also joining us. And it's important to have a young voice because this is a youth movement. Save Mole is a youth movement, and we've seen many young people get onto the streets and protest in the last couple of months. So I'm very glad to have Sherwin also on this conversation. I'm going to start with Dean first. Dean, if you can first of all take us through the significance of the entire topography. We're talking about Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary. We're talking about Mole National Park, and we'll put up that map again for the benefit of our viewers. You'll see that the three proposed projects are cutting through forest reserve. Dean?
Yeah. So I think it's very important to understand firstly is that, Goa is part of the Western Ghats, and the Western Ghats are one of the most biodiverse hotspots in the world. In fact, it's rated a 9 on 10, which is only second to the Amazon rainforest here. So we are in a very special zone. A lot of people think that, okay, fine, it's just a forest. What's a little railway line, a road, and a transmission line really going to do? But we are in paradise in a way. It's this unique part of the world, a unique part of nature, which we need to protect. And people say, okay, fine, development is needed. You need a road, you need a railway line, and you need a transmission line. But what are these projects really for? That's the big question. Because, right now, the railway line can manage with a single line. And the new proposed line is not necessarily in the same alignment. And the problem with a forest, with a nature reserve, is really to maintain its intrinsic connection, right throughout it. The moment you start subdividing it, you actually separate it. Animals find it very difficult to cross road lines, railway lines. When they do put a transmission line, they actually cut a huge swath of forest to clear, so to make sure that trees don't grow under those transmission lines. So you're subdividing this sanctuary into many parts, and therefore your biodiversity lies on the fact that you have a large piece of land which animals can move, animals, plants, everything can move one region to another. And the moment you slice that apart, is you're actually affecting nature. And besides, even this pandemic is because of zoonotic diseases, because we're releasing, wildlife which is being displaced is coming into human settlement, and so we're going to have serious health issues as well. Besides that, if you look at the coal demand that's passing through Goa and what they plan in terms of volumes, it's disastrous. It's going to be about 20 times what they're presently handling, and they can't decide whether Goa is a tourism destination or industrial destination. And this coal is not for Goa. It's for someplace outside. There are other ports like Mangalore, for example, which can easily take this load, which have also railway heads. But it just is a couple of rupees cheaper to pass it through Goa. So there's absolutely no consideration. And the main worry is that, okay, fine, development is needed, but go through the process. With environmental laws all over the country being compromised, I think it's a serious, slap on the face of the people that, we don't care about you. We will do our own thing. We will connive with, the corporate houses, industrialists, to make sure that they get what they want and at the cost of the people. And that's extremely disturbing too. And I'm really happy that the youth have woken up, and they see, because that's their future. The impact of this road line, railway line, transmission line is not going to be immediate. It's going to be in the future, the moment, all these projects come up. And I think and people are asking the right questions. Why? What is it? And all we're receiving is actually lies. Yeah? So it's really sad.
So you're saying the projects will be disastrous for Goa. Of course, we're looking at the pictures of the protest, the midnight protest that took place two days ago. Before I go across to Sherwin, I also want to ask you about the letter that's been written by architects to the government. Has there been any response received by the government, and what were the major demands in the letter?
Yeah, as far as I know, there've been no direct response to the architects. They've been the ministers have been, making noises about no, don't buy. This is only a railway line, and it's not going to affect people and things like that. But there's been no real response to the letter, and really, it's really disturbing. What the contents are really talking about. The environmental destruction that's taking place, and at what cost of development. I've been part of the state level committee in preparing the regional plan for Goa, and so it's been, so on one side, I'm, an environmentalist and concerned about, the environment. The other side, I'm a planner looking at how do we look at the future and what is sustainable development. And there's a balance, no doubt, that has to be, kept so that, you allow development, but you allow development which is, in benefit which is beneficial for the people, in which you do not destroy the environment. But the moment you allow development which is lopsided, which is only for the corporate world, you're going to face serious problems of, environmental degradation, social issues that take place, health issues that will take place. So we need to create that balance, and for that you need dialogue. You need enough time for, understanding what is needed, how can it be mitigated, is it really needed, but that's not happening at all, because it's something that's been thrust down the throats of people in terms of, this is what the country needs, and therefore we shall do it. And so that's what's really upset people. And maybe Sherwin can comment on that as somebody who's really
and that's a very important point that you made, that there is no dialogue, and we need dialogue here. I want to bring in Sherwin as well. Sherwin, if you can tell us about the movement itself. 2 days ago, we saw over 5,000 people protest. It was a midnight protest. How did the movement start? It's called Amche Mole, which means our Mole in Konkani. So how many young people have now, come together to fight for Goa?
Amitha, actually, in the first place, I'm very happy that this project has galvanized youth from all over Goa to come and protest, the cutting of trees for these projects at Moline. And I was very involved in the coal anti-coal movement in Vasco. And through personal experience, I can say that because of the youth and because of the protest and the persistence of the youth, we had it was the longest public hearing in the history because the youth made sure that everybody got a chance to speak. And we see so many thousands of youth, they come out and they're protesting till midnight, uh, against this what is going to happen at Moline. This movement started when the approvals were given uh, for these projects over video conference, and there was not any the stakeholders and the Goans who are actually who will be impacted by these projects. Their views were not taken into consideration, and this was during the pandemic. This was during the lockdown. So I mean, the sequence of events doesn't match up, and I think that is why I think the people felt betrayed that the government did not listen to them whilst giving approvals to these projects.
Mm. I also want to ask you this. You are an anti-coal activist yourself. Tell us this. One of the allegations is that this is being done to favor coal companies, but the chief minister has said that that is not true. How would you respond to that?
See, the route of the two projects, that is the double tracking and the expansion of the highway, is both in the it emanates from the Sagarmala project. Now, to give you a bit of context on the Sagarmala project, promotes uh, port-led development. It tries to promote a blue economy, and through this Sagarmala project, they want to turn Goa, especially the Murmugaon port, into a coal hub. At the moment, the Murmugaon port handles about 8 million tons of coal. But by 2035, their plan is to increase the handling capacity to 51 million tons. Now, this double tracking and the expansion of the highway in the Mole Wildlife Sanctuary is basically to to evacuate this 51 million tons and to send them to their eventual destination in Karnataka.
Hmm.
So that is the connection between the coal handling at Murmugaon port and these projects that are two projects that are going to take place
Hmm.
at Mole.
Hmm. And before I go to Mr. De Cruz, we have Asif, who's contributor, who's been very generous with his contribution. He says, want to thank your team for taking up these topics. Thank you so much for your contribution. Mr. De Cruz, I want to also ask you this, and we'll put up a map of the entire topography as well. What will this cause to the water bodies, for instance, in Goa? Because all of the three proposed projects go through a lot of water bodies as well.
So one is, of course, during the construction, you will have some issues. So whether it's the road widening or the rail thing, it's more about earth movement and therefore sedimentation of rivers, possibly diversion of water flow through the area. So those are issues which, of course, if done properly, can be mitigated.
Yes.
But the worry about coal and the way it's transported, I mean, already Sherwin can describe how pathetic it is in Vasco, where the particulate matter in the city has reached carcinogenic levels, and it's really compromising. So the government is really silently killing the people because it's a careless sort of handling of coal that's happening in the area, and so it's something which we don't know the impact of, and so it needs a proper medical study about what's really going to happen. But another thing that I just want to point out is why coal? I mean, where India is talking about renewable sources of energy and things like that, and yet on the other hand, it's just on paper, and instead of which we're actually seeing coal as this major source that's coming because it's cheaper, and that was not even a high grade of coal; it's a very poor grade of coal that's coming in because it's cheaper. And So I don't know if the new coal plants are really being, putting in the sort of proper pollution norms. So it's not just about Goa; it's about what's happening in the rest of India. The pollution levels are going to, be much higher in other parts of India, and that's really a sad thing to see. Because even if you talk about the transmission line, you say, Goa needs more power, but why? Where's the solar policy gone? Because we can easily produce a lot of solar energy, and we don't need to enhance our power, even if it is needed. The numbers also are very suspect in terms of why power is coming in. So we suspect that things are going to happen which the people are kept in the dark of. And so while we're gathering proof on what's really going to happen, it's the government's duty to actually be transparent with the people and let them know. So if it is something to be discussed, put on the table, yes, by all means. But the secrecy in which it's being done is the worrisome thing, which means that something is, not right over there, and they want to hide it from us.
You mentioned two important points. One is why coal, and I want to talk about health impact as well that people will face. Not just that, people will also have to give up their traditional land holdings if these three projects come through. And I want Sherwin to take this because he's been actively campaigning on ground as well. Sherwin, if you want to take this, what kind of health impact will people face?
Amitha, first of all, I'm a victim of the coal pollution that emanates from Murmugaon port. As a young child, I was always, admitted in the hospital, put on nebulizer because I used to get breathing difficulties, breathing issues. And that same thing, happens to my brother, my young brother, who's 9 years old. And, for so many years, it has been happening to him. To talk about statistics, there was an LAQ that was asked in the Goa Assembly about the number of people, who were suffering from, chest-related issues or respiratory ailments in Vasco City. And the government replies that there were about 5,000 people from Vasco who were treated at the Goa Medical College and at TB and Chest Hospital in Panjim in the last 5 years. Now, if we see the population of Vasco da Gama, Murmugaon, is about 90,000. So, one out of every 20 residents of Vasco have to be treated at GMC or the other hospital for respiratory problems. But what we know is the number of people who have been admitted or treated at government hospitals. What we don't know is the number of people who have gone to private doctors and private hospitals. And with that, the number could go up by a lot. And also, even though like now we are in the midst of a pandemic, the highest number of deaths, COVID deaths in Goa have been in Vasco, in the Murmugaon Taluka. And, this has vindicated studies because there was a study in Richmond in the United States where people have been, exposed to a lot of air pollution due to, that there's coal handling and all going on over there. And there has been a high density of COVID deaths happening in Richmond. And the same is being seen in Goa. Most of the COVID deaths that are happening in Goa are in Vasco da Gama. So I think it is this coal pollution that emanates from the Murmugaon port that is causing this. And if the handling is increased to 51 million tons by 2035, I can't fathom what is going to happen. It's going to be a disaster.
So there is a health impact, of course, and this will only aggravate that situation you're saying. I also want you to quickly talk about the PIL currently in court because there were concerns about two clearances that were given during the lockdown as well, and the PIL has been found by the Goa filed by the Goa Foundation. Tell us what has happened so far.
I had filed a PIL along with Goa Foundation regarding the coal handling at Vasco da Gama and the expansion project. So that is still going on in the court. There is not much that has. It's not yet come up for hearing.
Okay. Mr. De Cruz, do you believe that this is the only route now, and the fact that more people need to come out and protest? I know that in the next 1 week, there are more protests that are upcoming as well?
Yeah, I think it needs to be a three-pronged effort. I mean, for one, I mean, when over 10 years ago, when I was part of the battle to sort of stop a very poor regional plan, we had three strategies. One was, of course, going to court. The other was having a people's movement, so really, get an awareness going. And the third was actually with the opposition, so the political opposition. So and tell them, so what is your stand? So all the 40 MLAs need to say, are you concerned about the future of Goa or not? Because it's very clear it's a violation of environmental norms. It's a violation of a lot of laws, and besides the environment. So it needs, we need this three-pronged attitude. So it's while the court will seem to be the final sort of decider in the whole thing, people need to be aware, about what's, and actually take charge and start also as a third front questioning the political force and tell them that if you're not concerned about it, we're not going to vote for you anymore. I mean, you are, and especially the youth, because the youth will actually determine where the future of Goa and the country go.
Yes.
And the fact that they're actually sitting up and saying that, what are you doing about it? We've elected you to take care of us, and you're taking care of some corporate houses. So, I think it's important that it's multi-pronged.
And I have one question to Sherwin before we wrap up. Sherwin, I know that over 20 groups have sent in representations to the government. I know that there is a letter that has been sent by college students as well. Will there be more representations?
I hope there are more representations, because more the representations, it puts more pressure on the government. Mm-hmm. And I also hope that if the government of Goa has any concern for the people of Goa, they should also send representations to the government of India saying that the Mole project is not good for Goa and not good for Goans, that it will completely destroy, the environment and the natural habitat of animals at the Mole Wildlife Sanctuary. And there have been such attempts in the past. We had our, former Chief Minister, the late Manohar Parrikar, who had made representations to the central government, saying that coal is not good for Goa. But from what I heard, is that when the expert committee sat and discussed this project, they did not even pay heed to the letter that was sent by the Chief Minister. So I think more representation is good. And it will put pressure on the government. But I just hope and pray that our incumbent government pays heed to whatever we say. Because at the moment, the way people are protesting, yesterday you had a young woman on your show, and she was my senior in school, and she very nicely said that we are protesting a lot and we are doing everything, but the government does not pay heed. On top of that, the government says that if you don't want this project, we will cut off your power connection. It is really sad. And, such protests of such high magnitude, if it shows that it has no impact on the way the government is thinking, and if the government doesn't want to listen to us, I don't know what's going to be our future. Because we are the youth and we have to fight for the future. And what are we leaving the people who are born at today? When they grow up, they'll say this is all polluted, everything's gone. What I want to see of Goa is a clean and green Goa.
So you're saying you will continue protesting till the demands are met. And I want I have 30 seconds on the show. I want Mr. De Cruz to answer this question. One of our viewers has said just a few thousand protesting isn't going to solve anything. Most likely these protests will fizzle out after a few weeks. Do you want to respond to that?
I think the youth are fairly determined. For the first time, I'm seeing them really charged, and they're superbly organized, I must say. So I think it's going to take a lot to dissuade them from continuing the protest, and I'm happy for that.
Amitha, could I add?
Yes, please go ahead.
Just a few thousand, actually, one Goan makes a difference. Because I remember when this whole movement had started, it was just my father and 2-3 other people. And they, that time, got a project to stop. So I think maybe thousands or maybe one person, but every Goan who participates in these protests makes a difference.
Even one person is going to make a difference, and that's a lovely statement that you've made, and a very important thing that to have said. Sherwin and Mr. De Cruz, thank you so much for joining. And look at the visuals there. That was the midnight protest. More protests will follow because Goans are saying that they will not stop. These three infrastructure projects that are proposed are extremely disastrous, not only to the environment, but people will lose their land holdings. People will have to face a serious health impact. They're already facing in Vasco, like Sherwin was pointing out, but this will only aggravate the situation even further. And that's not something any of us want. So this is something that we're going to continue to pick up regularly on this channel. And people of Goa, they're saying that they will continue to protest as well. We're going to continue to follow this story. Thanks for watching.